Hello and welcome to the BDA Guide to Land Drilling Site Setups, brought to you by Equip Group. This training video will cover the basic safety requirements for the safe setup of land drilling sites for all UK-based projects. This is the first of 3 instructional videos. This one will focus on pre-site documentation requirements and the safe setup of drilling sites prior to drilling commencing. 2 further videos will focus on the unloading and correct setups for rotary drilling machines and cable percussion drilling machines. Our first area of focus is the competency of the drill crew to be used on the project. Ensuring that the operatives using the drilling machines are competent to do so is crucial to their safe operation. Although there is no formal training standard for the land drilling industry, there are 2 established industry assessments that help form the basis of competency evaluation. The first of these industry assessments is the vocational qualification, often referred to by their colloquial titles, NVQ or SVQ. For all UK projects, all drilling personnel should have achieved as a minimum a vocational qualification in land drilling, specific to their role within the drill crew, i.e. lead driller or drilling support operative. However, in some scenarios the support operative may be working towards achieving their VQ, so may not have full certification. Drillers moving from support operative to lead driller may also be operating the drilling machine. However, in this case they must only do so under the supervision of a fully qualified lead driller. VQ certification must include the operative's name and, most importantly, the endorsement and category of their qualification. It is vital to ensure the operative has received assessment and certification in using the correct drilling machine. It is important to note that the VQ is a once-only qualification and does not provide evidence of ongoing competency. The second established industry assessment is the BDA audit, provided by the industry's representative trade body for drilling contractors, the British Drilling Association. This is an annual audit of the entire drilling operation. The accredited audit scheme is carried out and verified by industry experts. The audit is conducted on an annual basis and thus helps to demonstrate the ongoing competency of operatives that the vocational qualification is unable to deliver. The audit also provides an opportunity for continued professional development for the drilling operatives. The audit covers all aspects of the drilling crew's competency, from compliance with health and safety regulations and legislation to technical knowledge of drilling techniques. Aside from the established industry assessments, there are a number of other aspects of training and evidence required to demonstrate competency. Firstly, evidence must be available that the drilling crew are sufficiently trained in service avoidance. This must include the ability to safely and effectively utilise cat and jenny equipment. However, the training should go beyond this, ensuring that the operatives understand maps, plans and drawings, and also are able to understand and demonstrate the principles of safe digging practices. Next is evidence of asbestos in soils training. This training must go beyond a simple asbestos awareness course and must include coverage of asbestos work category definitions, as well as safe sampling procedures for suspected asbestos-containing materials. Depending on the site classification, it may also be a requirement that the drilling operatives are able to provide evidence of training of safe working procedures and sampling practices in more general contaminated land. However, this training evidence is only as required and does not apply to all sites. Also required is evidence of first aid qualifications. This training should, at a minimum, be a 1-day face-to-face emergency first aid at work course, although other courses are permissible. Evidence of manual handling training must also be provided. Manual handling is identified as a major hazard in the drilling operation, so the ability to demonstrate understanding of good handling techniques and awareness of the legislation surrounding it are important to help ensure the safety of everyone on site. All rigs use wire ropes during their operation, so evidence that the drill crew understand how to inspect and replace damaged or worn wire ropes is needed. A thorough understanding of safe working loads and safety factors must be evidenced. Finally, the drilling crew must provide evidence that they have received drilling rig familiarization training that has acquainted them with the rig's individual functions. There must also be evidence of training in the safe operation of any specific tooling or drilling systems, such as wireline systems. All equipment to be utilized on land drilling sites must be deemed safe to use before use of them is deemed permissible. There are several certifications and inspections that must be present to ensure this safety. The first of these is the Certificate of Incorporation. Since 1993, it has been a requirement that all new land drilling machines and pieces of lifting equipment put on the market in the EU, EEA, or the UK must have a CE mark visible. In addition to a visible CE mark, the user should also be provided with a declaration of conformity. This declaration should be available for all drilling machines. Next are two regulations that have been enforced since the late 1990s. The UK land drilling industry applies both Provision and Use of Work Equipment Regulations 1998, or PURE for short, and the Lifting Operations and Lifting Equipment Regulations 1998, more commonly known as LOLA. While the relationship between PURE and drilling machines is undisputed, drilling machines are, after all, work equipment, the relationship between LOLA and drilling machinery has been contested. The primary use of the drilling machine is not to lift, and therefore should not apply when referencing LOLA. However, the industry has adopted the robust inspection, examination, and certification requirements outlined within LOLA. This is because the components used to raise and lower tooling into boreholes mirror the components used in lifting operations. With this in mind, firstly, all drilling machines must be inspected in line with the manufacturer's requirements as per PURE legislation. PURE inspections can be carried out daily, weekly, monthly, or even yearly, depending on the usage of the machine and the likely wear and tear caused through daily use. They must be carried out and documented by someone with suitable knowledge and experience of the machinery, in this case, a lead driller. Evidence of this inspection is normally given via a report similar to the one displayed here, however they can be handwritten or digital. Secondly, all lifting equipment, including accessories such as swivels, hooks and shackles, any winches in use on the drilling machine, along with all of their associated wire ropes, must also be thoroughly examined by a competent person in line with LOLA. A competent person is someone who is demonstrably familiar with drilling machines and their operation, and, according to LOLA, the competent person thoroughly examining this equipment should be an impartial third party. These examinations must take place every 6 months if they're an accessory, i.e. a shackle or a hook, or every 12 months for the drilling machine itself, along with its components such as winches. You should ensure that on all certification, each item's unique identification number is clearly displayed. This goes for both the drilling machine as well as all winches, ropes and accessories. It is also important to ensure that the safe working load of each item is also identified along with its respective safety factor, otherwise referred to as a factor of safety. If the safety factor is being applied to make the accessory compliant, The certificate must make this clear. Finally, ensure that the certificate is within correct examination dates. Where ground investigation is being carried out, there is also a requirement for an energy ratio certificate for the standard penetration hammer. In most cases, you should expect an energy ratio to be above 60 but below 90%. You should always check during the drilling operation that the certification matches the hammer ID of the trip hammer on site. During all land drilling activities, underground and overhead services pose a significant risk. As such, as part of the pre-construction information, current records of underground services must be obtained from the utility providers and through PAS 128 surveying. PAS 128 survey categories D, C, and B should be obtained. The records obtained from these surveys must be less than 90 days old prior to any location being available for drilling. This concludes coverage of the pre-site requirements. Next, we will take a look at requirements on site prior to drilling commencing. The first on-site requirement that we will cover is the provision of personal protective equipment, or PPE for short. Whilst risks should always be reduced through elimination, reduction, and engineering controls, there sometimes remains a need in risk mitigation for PPE. This is because some risks to the operators and those around the drilling machine still exist, albeit reduced through other measures. Good practice for baseline PPE requirements on any and all sites are as follows. Safety helmet. Ear defenders or ear plus for hearing protection. High visibility clothing, where the work environment will dictate the British standard being applied, although highway specification can be applied to ensure compliance in all environments. Fire-resistant clothing, either overalls or separate long-sleeved shirt and trousers. Safety spectacles, or a helmet-mounted visor. Gloves, to cut level 5 specification. And finally, lace-up safety boots with ankle support, or safety Wellingtons depending on the ground conditions. Prior to the commencement of works, the drilling contractor must undertake a site walkover of the drilling positions. The primary objectives from this site walkover are to identify the borehole location, assess the site access routes, determine the ground suitability, and finally plan and agree the working area arrangements, including any requirements for site restrictions and placement of welfare or decontamination units. The site walkover is the first time you will be on site with the driller, and it is important that you discuss any issues or challenges that each individual site may pose. Here, a route must be agreed to take the drilling machine to the borehole position. The first aim of this visit is to finalise the borehole locations with the driller. The aim of the walkover is to ensure that all hazards have been taken into consideration and that the intended plant and equipment required to be used are suitable and do not introduce any new hazards. Next, and in partnership with the drilling contractor, identify access and support routes for the drill sites, ensuring that any height restrictions are taken into consideration. Areas of high traffic may require immediate ground protection. Ensure the ground conditions are assessed along the likely drilling machine access route. This access route must be double-checked and agreed with the supervising engineer. This must be agreed prior to the drilling machine being taken to the borehole position, and preferably prior to the drilling machine being offloaded from any transport. Whilst determining the ground suitability along the travel route, be sure to check for evidence of conditions which may create a hazard, i.e., uneven ground, soft ground, buried structures, services buried and overhead, obstructions, or potential voids or cavities. Where poor ground conditions are identified and no alternative suitable routes can be found, haul route support is to be installed. Full drilling platforms may also be required. Working areas should be well planned and laid out, with sufficient working space to accommodate all plant and equipment safely. Ease of manual handling must also be given due consideration when mapping out work areas. Tooling and equipment storage must be arranged to reduce travel distance when conducting manual handling. In addition, ensure clear, unobstructed walkways are maintained throughout the working area. All site working areas should accommodate room for welfare facilities and, if necessary, decontamination units must also be afforded space and consideration. Once the working area has been set up, focus will need to turn to checking for services and clearing a starter pit before drilling activities can commence. Things we need to consider here include provision of Cat and Jenny equipment, any service markups already present as a result of any PAS 128 service tracing, who will be conducting scanning of the borehole area prior to breaking ground, and signing of associated permits to break ground. We will also need to consider appropriate safe digging practices when excavating the starter pit, and making sure the borehole site is re-scanned during this excavation. Thanks to the PAS 128 surveys conducted before you reach site, you should already have a good idea as to where services are located. However, you must always have access to Cat and Jenny equipment in order to conduct re-scanning of the borehole area. The scanning should be carried out utilising certified Cat and Jenny equipment. Be sure to check the equipment in use is in date. Ideally, the services should already be marked up on site courtesy of the PAS 128 surveys. Try to ensure that these markings are not covered by any ground protection and remain visible at all times. A final Cat and Jenny scan must be undertaken by a competent Cat and Jenny trained operative prior to any drilling taking place. The scanning area should extend out a minimum of 2.5 metre radius from the location of the borehole, and where possible, no borehole shall be located within 5 metres of any known service. As drilling machines may be delivered on the back of haulage vehicles and are typically higher than a standard road vehicle, the location and height of overhead services and cables should be considered when delivering, collecting, and moving drilling machines. Once all underground and overhead services have been considered and identified, the permit to break ground, or permit to dig, must be in place before any breaking ground activities. The permit must confirm the location of the borehole, including coordinates, confirmation of service clearance of the location through a PAS 128 survey category type B, and confirm that the Cat and Jenny scanning has been completed. The permit must also detail the requirements for a starter pit to be excavated prior to drilling. This must be signed by the supervisor and the drilling team prior to breaking ground. No drilling activity, excluding pavement cores, is permitted to be undertaken from ground level. Hand-dug starter pits or vacuum excavation machinery are to be used to excavate an inspection pit at every location. The pits are to be excavated following safe digging practices at all locations. These are to be dug only with insulated hand tools being used, and no pickaxes, forks, handheld breakers, wrecking bars, or other stabbing tools used for purposes of excavation. Where excavating through rocky, made ground, an insulated wrecking bar can be used to lever rocks or to loosen other debris, but it should never be driven into the ground. Due to the depth of the starter pit, long-handed tools designed for the excavation of pits should be used to reach the base of the excavation, while maintaining a suitable working position to avoid musculoskeletal injuries. During the excavation of the starter pit, Cat and Jenny scans are required to be completed every 300 mm and at the base of the excavation. This is to provide maximum ground penetration of the cable avoidance tool by the competent operator of the Cat. Once starter pits have been completed, the setup of the drilling machine is permitted to take place, with any drilling activity soon to follow. This concludes the pre-site and on-site pre-drilling aspects of this BDA Guide to Land Drilling Site Setups, brought to you by Equip Group.